Hi everyone, welcome to episode 8 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind Michi Fraz Knits. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about a finished object, yet another pattern release. We finally have a resolution on the Field Day Cardigan, and if we have time, I will also be talking about my ideas and plans for what I'll be knitting next. We'll see if I have time. I always feel like I'm gonna just have a few small things to talk about and it's gonna be short, but then my episodes always end up being close to an hour, so I don't know if we'll get into my next planned projects in this one, or I might just save that until next week. But why don't we go ahead and start by talking about what I'm wearing. So I am knitting my finished version of the Prismatic Reflection Summer mod. If you are familiar with this podcast, then you'll know that I've talked about my Prismatic Reflection Sweater. I have the solid version on the mannequin today, so you can see what it looks like without the stripes. But that is a DK weight top-down raglan sweater pattern that I designed, and I published that earlier, like the beginning of spring of this year. And so I got to wear it for a little bit, but then as the weather has turned warmer, obviously I can't wear those sweaters now, but I really wanted to have a version of it that I could wear in the summer. So after a bit of trial and error with picking out some yarns, I finally landed on the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, which I have held double. It's a fingering weight yarn, and I've held it double in the same manner that I've done with my original sweater pattern, and that's to achieve this marling effect, which you can see here. Not only is it to achieve the DK weight, but it's also to have this subtle marling. I really love the stripes on this design. That's part of what I loved when I first created this. My vision when I first designed this pattern was striping it, but I didn't want huge blocky stripes that were super bold, because I also do have a cable motif, which you can kind of see as I turn it in the light, and it's also on the back and the sleeves. And I want everything to be very subtle, but I still want everything to shine through. And I just think that marling the stripes helps to soften the colors, and it makes it a little less jarring, and I really like the effect. So I've already talked a lot about this pattern in my previous episodes, but I'll just give you guys a brief summary. For needle sizes, I used a US 5 or a 3.75 millimeter for the ribbing, and then I used a US 7 or 4.5 millimeter for the body, and that gives it kind of a nice open gauge. You know, it's a DK weight, but it's not a super tight gauge, so it still feels quite airy, which obviously for a summer top is what I'm looking for. You know, there's always the risk factor when you do a DK weight summer top over a fingering weight because, you know, it's a thicker yarn, it's a thicker gauge, but I'm really liking this Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. It's actually quite breathable, it's light. It's not nearly as heavy as a lot of the cottons that I've used. It definitely did give me some hand fatigue after a while. Like I actually took a couple of days off knitting afterwards just because my wrist hurt a little bit after, so just be wary of that. I mean, I feel like that's pretty common with a lot of cotton yarns, especially cotton or linen blend type yarns. But overall, I think it was worth it. I'm so happy with it. I'm so happy with the way it drapes. It feels really nice and soft. I think that 30% merino is doing a good job of giving this a little bit of memory and just a little bit of softness to where it doesn't feel like I'm wearing a washcloth or a towel. So yeah, really love it. Again, about this pattern, it's a top-down raglan with it's got a slip stitch raglan, and that is meant to mimic these slip stitch cables that you see throughout. And yeah, I'm just so happy with this. I'm doing a size 2, but it comes in 9 sizes. So the finished measurements range from 34 inches all the way to a 64.75 inch bust. And that is 85 centimeters to 162 centimeters in bust circumference. Yeah, so the colors I used for the cotton merino from Knitting for Olive were, the main color is cream. This first stripe is soft mint. The second stripe is elephant blue, and then the third stripe is lime yellow. And I went back and forth on the stripes, which you'll know if you watched my last episode, but I'm so glad I picked the lime yellow. I love it. I love it so much. It just feels so fun, and it's exactly what I wanted for a summer top. And with that, I will talk a little bit about the surprise that happened when I blocked this. So obviously I knit up a swatch and I blocked the swatch, and I didn't notice much of a change in my swatch, but again, you know, I did like a 4x4 inch swatch, so it wasn't anything huge. And so when I was knitting this, I decided that I was actually going to knit it a little bit shorter than I ordinarily would, with the full expectation that it was going to grow in length. Because when I've worked with cotton in the past, like typically the weight of it kind of pulls it down a little bit, and I've found that it's grown a bit, especially really with like a lot of plant-based fibers. So, you know, I did the same thing with this. I blocked it in cold water, laid it out to dry. I have one of those Cocoa Knits, like the little, it looks like a Pringle, the drying mat that kind of just looks like a Pringle. I don't know. I laid it out on that, gave it a couple of days to fully dry, and then I tried it on, and it shrunk in length by a good ½ an inch. I purposely took all my measurements before blocking and after blocking because I really didn't know what was going to happen. And when I went on Ravelry, I found that different people had said different things. Some people said it grew, some people said it shrunk. So I had no idea what it was going to do. But just in case this is helpful to you, before I blocked it, I was getting 20.25 stitches per 4 inches. And then I was getting 26 rows per 4 inches. After I blocked it, I ended up getting 20.5 stitches per 4 inches. So the width didn't really change that much, but I ended up getting 27 rows per 4 inches instead of the 26 before. So it shrunk by 1 whole stitch per 4 inches, which was more than I was expecting. Well, I was expecting it to grow, so definitely more than I was expecting. So what ended up happening is this became a bit of a crop top. I was fine with stopping it where it was because I figured if for some reason it does shrink, I still have 2.5 more balls of this yarn, so it's not a big deal. However, now that it's done and I'm wearing it, you know, because it's a little bit of a looser fit, which is intentional, it's meant to have a little bit of extra positive ease, I actually think I like how cropped it is. So I think I'm going to try and find some cute high-waisted shorts that I can wear with this, because I would like to wear this to flock, because I have the feeling it's going to be quite warm and I just want to be really comfortable and in something light and airy. So I think I'm going to keep it this way. I'm going to wear it today and see how I feel in it. I'm going to go to knit night and all of that. And as long as I'm comfortable with the length and don't feel like it's too cropped, I think I'm just gonna stick with it. I think this is just one of those happy accidents. Fortunately, I was okay with it being a little bit short because of the oversized fit, so I think it worked out. But if you are thinking about using the Knitting for All of Cotton Merino and you're not sure, I felt like this might be helpful for you to just kind of know what to expect. Outside of that, back to the pattern, the only modifications that I made where I differed from my pattern were on the collar. It's not folded over, basically. So I only did, I think I did 6 rows of ribbing before going right into the pattern instead of doing the double fold over and knit together that I did in the sweater pattern. And then length, I did about the same length, believe it or not, but I did opt to do a shorter amount of ribbing. I think I have 2.5 inches of ribbing on the bottom hem for my sweater pattern, but I didn't think that really would work on a summer top like this. I wanted it to just feel, I don't know, lighter. I didn't want it to feel so heavy at the bottom. I wanted it to feel light. And so I think I did 9 rows of ribbing for the hem. And then for the sleeves, as soon as the cables were done and I finished the chart, I knit one more row, and then I did a setup row on my ribbing so that the stitches would align, and then did 4 rows of ribbing. Now, if you are curious about the modifications that I did, I wrote everything down and put it in my project page on Ravelry. So I will link to that so you can see everything I did. And just so you know, the setup row that I'm talking about here, it's actually because you've got the 2 diamond cables that converge right here. And then when you're doing ribbing, you know, one of them was a knit and one of them was a purl, and I just really didn't like that. It's the same thing that happened with my Prismatic Reflection socks. So this is the same modification that I made. I basically did a setup row where I purl 2 together right before you get to that converged stitch, and then you knit 1, and then you actually do a backwards loop cast on to cast on a stitch in between them, and then you continue your ribbing as normal. You don't have to do that. That was my preference. For the socks, when I had that set up, there were a couple of testers who chose not to do it, which is fine. You know, it's just like one extra step, and it's really just for aesthetics, and it's not really that obvious, but it's just one of those things where I feel better knowing I did it because I just like that little extra detail. So yeah, but other than that, it's exactly to pattern. So it's very easy to take a summer garment and then just make it short sleeve, maybe make it a little bit lighter by using a different yarn, like not a wool or an alpaca. And yeah, I just couldn't be happier with this. So this is my Prismatic Reflection summer mod. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. I'm gonna tilt that over so you can see. So that is Tuna, who has discovered he can open our cabinets, and Bagel's just along for the ride. So Tuna will get up on top of, he'll stick his paws on the top of the cabinet and just like continuously pull until he can try and get one open. Fortunately, these are actually pretty heavy, so he can't really open those super easily, but the kitchen cabinets, he has fully worked out how to open, and we found them in our pots and pans, so that's been fun. It feels like I've been knitting a ton of socks lately. I don't know how you guys are, but typically like when the weather shifts from like spring to early summer, I find that I've knit a lot more socks just because I think the idea of having a big bulky knit is not something I want to be doing. And socks, they're just so little and portable. They don't make me hot when I'm knitting them. I can take them anywhere. You know, obviously it's summer, so we're out a lot more, we're doing things, and it's just such a great portable project. So I think that's part of why I've just been in like sock knitting madness right now. I wanted to quickly just say a big thank you for the reception of my flock socks. You guys have been so kind and so wonderful, and I just really appreciate the support. I've been so excited to see everybody starting their projects, and I wanted to let you know that the sock kits from Hazel Knits are officially available. So you can get your sock kit now. I would hurry up because I think a lot of people have been ordering the sock kits and they're going fast. She's obviously going to continue to try and dye to order, but if you know you want to get the Hazel Knits yarn for this, then I would recommend doing that sooner than later. But yeah, so flock socks fully available, kits are out, and now we can move on to the will she or won't she rip out this Field Day Cardigan portion of my podcast. So my Field Day Cardigan, which you guys are probably very familiar with, and like, oh my God, what is she gonna do already? Just like pick a lane. I did pick a lane. So last week I asked you guys to give me some feedback on what you thought about if I should keep moving with this or rip it out. And I also mentioned that I was going to be taking it to Knit Night and asking their opinion. It's quite funny, actually. So I put it on, and it was initially a split decision. I had two people that were like, yeah, you should keep it. It's oversized. It's going to be really comfy. Don't you want a big cozy cardigan? And then one who was like, absolutely not. It's too big. You need to go down a size. And then one who was like super on the fence. And I think deep down she was thinking it's too big, but she didn't want to say anything and hurt my feelings. But then like slowly they were kind of getting convinced that maybe it would be okay. One of my friends who also comes to Knit Night, she had also knit this, and she has just finished hers, and hers ended up being about the same width as this. So I tried hers on, and it actually looked really great on me, but she ended up having much tighter gauge on her sleeves. And then when I was laying mine over top hers, I still think mine was slightly wider than hers. And this is a superwash wool, so I expect that it's going to continue to grow. And so after that, and lots of thinking and not really knowing what to do, posted this video, and you guys overwhelmingly were like, rip it out, start over, do the size you know you want. And a few people made a really good point and said that if you felt good about this and you didn't have any doubts, you wouldn't have let this sit for however many weeks now. And that was when I was like, you know, that's right. Like normally I don't sit on a project. I am actually typically mostly a monogamous knitter. I typically do one project at a time. I might have things on hold while I'm waiting for stuff, but when I'm excited about a project, I get it done, like case in point. And I haven't worked on this in weeks now, and that actually really bums me out because it's just so beautiful and it's gonna be a great cardigan. But I think what they were saying was really true, and that deep down I know that this isn't the right size, and I think I just need to rip it out and redo it at the smaller size. And I'm hoping that that will give me the fit that I'm really looking for. So that is what I'm going to do. I am ripping this guy out, and I'm going to knit it at the smallest size because my gauge is a little bit larger than what hers recommends. My full garment gauge, not my gauge swatch, which you already know, gauge swatch lies sometimes. So yeah, we're redoing this guy. I don't know when. Like there's a big part of me that wants to kind of start working on this now, but there's also another part of me that's like, well, do I really want to work on a big bulky cardigan in July? Like it's finally warm here, and wow, is it warm. Like it went from like really nice, cool, moody weather to like, bam, it's summer, everything is hot, the sun is out, and all of my flowers are wilting. So I think I should go ahead and rip this out now to try and get some of the kinks out of the yarn. I don't really want to let it sit for too much longer, so I can wind that yarn back up, and then maybe in another month or two I'll start working on this so I can have it for fall. But yeah, so thank you actually for everybody who commented and gave me their opinion. It's really helpful, just because sometimes I think I know deep down, but until you hear it from other people, you're not quite sure, because it's so easy to kind of get stuck in your head with your knits, because it's something where you are literally making a garment for your body and then analyzing how it looks on your body, which also means you're analyzing your body and how things fit you and how things look on you, and comparing that to photos you see on Ravelry with, you know, people who look differently than you and sometimes make you think, man, I wish it fit me like that, but it's never going to. And you know, you can get really caught up in all of those really bad thoughts. And sometimes it's nice to just like step outside of that, ask for an outside opinion, and go from there. So yeah, thanks again for your comments, super helpful. And yeah, now I know what I'm gonna do. So it's not too bad. I'm actually not too upset about it. Like, I think I've had time to think about it, and I know that when I redo it and do it to the size that I want, I'm gonna get a lot more wear out of it. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And that means that I shouldn't have to buy more yarn, which is another plus, because I really didn't want to do that. Yeah, so that's kind of it. I guess this is actually a much shorter episode than I've done typically. So I think we actually have a little bit of time for me to talk about what I'm thinking about doing next. It's weird because I normally always have something on the needles, and right now, well, okay, that's kind of a lie. I do actually have multiple other things on needles upstairs, and maybe I'll do a video of my languishing whips that really need to be done or redone. I've got a few, all of which I want to finish, one of which is a massive cardigan for my husband, and it's like all over cabled and pieced, and I'll knit like 2 rows on it and then put it away for a month. It's terrible. So maybe I'll do another video about those, and maybe that will help motivate me to actually work on those. But in my main section of what I'm knitting now that I want to wear now, or, you know, have soon, I don't really have anything. And, you know, it's early July, and I keep thinking about Flock or other places that I'll be going this summer where I want to wear a knit, but I don't want to wear something that's super hot. And so I've been thinking about my summer knits, and also trying to think about how I can use the yarn I have. Obviously, I am going to Flock this year in, oh my God, it's in 1 month actually. And that means I will probably be buying yarn, which means I don't really want to buy anything right now. Like, I don't want to buy more yarn. I don't need to buy more yarn. I have plenty of yarn. I don't have a ton of summer yarn though. And so what I have, I've brought down because I want to talk through some of the patterns I'm thinking about using for the yarn I have, and maybe get your feedback, or, you know, you can just commiserate with me about like your extra random balls of yarn. So I think I'll just show you, I'm trying to think of the best way to show this off on camera. I'll show you a couple of the groupings of yarn I've got that I think would work well for summer tops. My first batch is this stuff. So these are all the colors. You can see I've got 6 colors in this Blue Sky Metallico. Now this yarn is leftover actually from a pattern I actually designed for Blue Sky. I did an accessory for them, and it won't actually be out until spring summer of 2025. But I ended up having a decent amount of leftover yarn. Obviously, when I do a pattern, I try to get as much yarn as I can because I don't know how much I'm gonna need to swatch with, and I always overestimate how much I'm going to need. That way, I mean, you don't wanna be designing a pattern and then run out of yarn. That would be a disaster. And so what ends up happening is I've got a decent amount of extra yarn, but it's multiple colors, and it's not the same amount in each color. So I've actually got like 3.5 skeins of the opal, which is white, and each of these is 50 grams or 147 yards. And this Metallico, it's 50% baby alpaca and 50% silk. It's absolutely gorgeous yarn. Like I said, I knit an accessory with it, and I actually had a really hard time sending it off. So, you know, I came up with the pattern, and then I knit a sample, and I send the sample out to Blue Sky. And I really wanted to keep this one. Like, it was tough for me to send that one away because I actually really wanted to wear it this summer. It would be so nice. So I've had it in my mind that I'd love to make myself an actual garment with this yarn. And I don't want to have to buy more if I don't have to. Technically, I've definitely, okay. I definitely have enough to make a garment by yardage. No, don't do that, Bagel. Bagel is, so my cup is just out of frame, and Bagel likes to jump on the table and sniff my straw and like rub on it. And, you know, if he does that, then I need to wash it. So anyway, cats. So yeah, as you can see, I've got a decent amount. of this Metallico yarn. I technically have 2 of each color. I used a little bit of the color. I would say I've got like 2 3/4 of a hank for each color. And the colors I've got are, where are they? So Lapis, which is the blue, Jade, which is this green, Carnelian red, gold topaz, and rose quartz. So as you can see, I mean, the colors are just, look at how shiny they are from the silk and the alpaca. The alpaca makes the drape like crazy. So it's just a really luxurious, soft, cool yarn. And I'm thinking in my head about doing something striped, obviously, because I don't have enough of any one color to do. Like at first I was like, maybe I can get a tank out of, you know, my 3.5 hanks of white, but each one, it's only 50 grams. So I actually don't think that's gonna happen unless it's like a really cropped tank. And then also just to mention, this is it's a sport weight yarn. So it's I mean, actually, I think it's a pretty solid sport weight. Like it's, you know, sometimes you get a sport weight and you're like, this might as well be a fingering weight yarn. But I think this is a pretty accurate to being sport. And so I've been trying to think of a cute, firmly sport weight top that I could do. And I was actually just watching a friend to knit with, who is Leslie Friend, I believe, on YouTube, and she was going over her summer knits that she wears the most. And what was the one that she called out? She was talking about Everyday Attitude by Susanne Sommer. It calls for fingering, but I was wondering if looking at her recommended size, I would need to knit a size 2. But I was thinking about maybe trying to use this yarn and do it in size 1. Obviously, I'll need to do a gauge swatch to see if that'll work. But what I liked about it is it looks like a pretty quick knit, and it's garter stitch, which I wouldn't normally go for a garter stitch top because of that level of bulk. But what I liked about it is that it's striped on every row, and it's like black and white is the one that I saw that she had knit up, and it was really pretty, like just really nice. And the way the lines, I don't know if you knit the whole thing flat, or if maybe you're just knitting the top portion flat and then it's in the round after. It might be in the round once you join for sleeves, but the way the top is joined, you can tell that you seam the sleeves, and the lines come in at an angle right at the shoulders, and it makes this really beautiful chevron down the arm. And I was thinking about what that might look like with either these two or these two. Now, I need to do some math though, because I don't know if that is still enough. So I might actually need to do a couple of colors throughout. I need to make sure, and I can always order more of the white if I need that for the base. But I'm really trying not to order more yarn. So I'm still looking through, I'm still thinking of other maybe like tanks that I could do that would take up a little bit less yardage, because I would really love to use this yarn. And so that's one idea I had. And then I know I have mentioned this to you guys already last episode. So this is my leftover Knitting for Olive cotton merino. I'm just showing you all the colors. Technically, I've got 2.5 balls of the cream, but this is basically what I've got. As you can see, I was incredibly indecisive when I was picking colors for this, so I bought a bunch of colors to figure out what I wanted to do. And now that means I have a bunch of single balls of this yarn. And yes, again, I can buy more colors of whatever one I really like if I want to do that. But I'd like to avoid that if I can. And so with this, I've been thinking about maybe doing a Vellichor by Andrea Lowry. Now, again, depending on which color I want to use as the main grid color, if I use the cream, then I think I'll need to buy one more ball. But what I think I'd really like to do is use the navy with maybe these two, maybe something else. I don't know. But yeah, and if I use the navy as the main color, then I'll need to buy more of that. I don't know. I think what's tough is, this is going to be an ironic statement considering what I'm wearing, but I don't typically lean toward knitting a lot of striped garments. That's not to say I don't like striped garments. It's just not normally what I lean toward for my knitting patterns. And so, and I guess what I mean is like the stripes where it's every single, it's just continually striping. But I think that's really what I need to do for this, is I think I just need an all over striped top for these. And that's really the best way for me to use up this yarn and not have to buy a whole bunch more. Outside of that, the other yarns that I've been kind of contemplating using, they're not really summer yarns, but I think they work because they're fingering weight. So we're gonna call them alternates for summer tops. This first one this is Black Elephant sock in the colorway Esme, and that's the tag. And it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. I bought this last year with the intention of actually knitting a summer top, this little summer tank that was really lacy. And that's kind of what I had in mind for a fingering weight yarn that actually has merino in it, because I think something lacy in this would be lightweight enough to where it would be okay. And this was the gauge swatch I did for it. And I actually started knitting it last year, and then it just wasn't really working out. And then I ended up having to do some unexpected travel, and it just ended up getting pushed to the back burner. And by the time I got around to thinking about it, summer was almost over. And so now we're in summer of this year, and as you can tell, the green has really been on my mind. And I think actually, so what's funny is the fact that I couldn't make myself a summer top in this green color is what ended up having me buy this green yarn for the cardigan, because I saw this color at Hazel Knits and was like, yeah, this green still needs to happen. And I don't know why the green keeps not working. I need something in green. So I also think a lacy tank or top in this would be beautiful. Now I only have 2 skeins, and what is the yardage on this? Does it say? It doesn't even say. I'll put the yardage up on the screen, but I mean, I'm imagining it's probably like 400 and something yards per 430, 460, something like that. So I can't do anything huge. Like I don't even know if a lot of full tops will work if they're a tighter gauge. It needs to be something that's a loose gauge and lacy. And so I don't know what, but I would love a little tank in this. And then my other alternate is another Hazel Knits color, actually. So this is another Artisan sock. Oh, look at that color. Oh my God. I have a couple of skeins of this, and it's in the colorway Vivian, and that's a 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon, and it's 400 yards, and I have 2 of these. And this was another one where I initially bought it with the idea, I had this design in my mind that I've swatched out a few times and I don't really like how it's swatching, so that's kind of been on the back burner as well. But this yarn, I've still been thinking of it as something that would be really beautiful as a summer top. So that's another one that's just kind of sitting there. I don't know if I'm actually gonna get to this for this summer. Honestly, I still, like even just pulling this green out, it's just calling my name. So I'm either going to do something with this or I think the Metallico. I think it's going to be one of those options. So if you guys have any recommendations or anything you think would be really great in this yarn, I'd love to hear it. It'd be great if I could knit something up in this and wear this on the other day I'm at Flock, because I'll be at Flock multiple days, and you know, what's more fun than having completely new garments for each day? I mean, I'm gonna be wearing something different. Originally I was thinking I would wear this on day 1 and my moonset tee on day 2, but oh, it would be so fun to have something in this color. So we'll see. I'm gonna think on it a little bit. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts if you have any pattern recommendations, anything that you think is a really great, fun summer knit, and I'll continue to think on it. That's basically it for my knitting. You know, it wasn't as, there's not like any works in progress for me to talk about, which is kind of crazy. I'm hoping that I'll have some for you by next week. Again, I have knit night tonight, so I have to come up with something to work on. Worst case scenario, I guess I can spend knit night tonight unraveling my Field Day cardigan. But yeah, so that concludes Knit Chat for today. In terms of what I'm reading, I am still working through Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. And that's the book where, obviously I don't want to give much away, but the main character is caught in a time loop and she is working back through events in her life, trying to figure out a way to stop an event from happening, all the while picking up on things that she didn't notice as she was living it and only seeing it as she's living it a second time through. I am thoroughly enjoying this book. Like it turned out to be so different from what I expected. Like even flipping through the first few chapters versus where I am now, I would say I'm probably about 60 or 70% of the way through it, and I'm just really enjoying it. So I obviously haven't finished it yet, but as of right now, I would definitely recommend this as a book to check out. Yeah, so that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sticking around. If you need to get in touch with me, you can find me on Mishifraz on Instagram and Ravelry. You can email me at mishifraz@gmail.com, and then you can also find my blog at mishifrazknits.com. Yeah, definitely check out the discount codes for my patterns, which won't be on for much longer. Thank you so much for, you know, being a part of this community and always just being so great. I love to chat with you guys, and I will chat with you more next week. Bye.